Ooh, forgot to turn this off. Whoops. There we go. So yeah, welcome back. Back to Dark Souls. So we're going to do that. Whoopsie! Oh yeah, I need to turn also that on. The others, the software, so we count up the deaths. So there we go. And hello Shikaka. Welcome. Thus. So last time killed the 2 bosses, so we continue on with with 0 deaths, so 0 deaths. Hey hey hey. Oh, okay. I thought it was something wrong with the game. Jesus Christ, can you do it, game? You will be able to do it, yes or no? Oh, what a song. Come on! I need to turn something off? Let me check. Maybe? Is it this one? Oh, crap. Just a second. Do this. Okay. And X this. Okay. I don't know why it's kind of bothersome. Oh, okay. That would be panic. What? No connection? No. So yeah, this is the last time. Do have all of the Estus tracks that we need. Vision Wizard, of course. Time for quite something. Banner not in the... What? Did I get anything? I think I did. Didn't spend anything. Where's the banner? Thank you. Thank you very much. Given by Emma. Who the frick is Emma? Oh, her. Ah, okay. So we're back. We're going back. Come on. No, no.
Ah, how may I?
I'm not sure if you need to buy it. Just a second. Just check the map. But that's not good. Selkie. Just check. I need to get into the church. Ah, god damn it.
Ashen One.
Not those warriors. I mean those knights. Dang it. Yeah, you need to go into the church where it actually can fight also the dancer. Oh, that is going to be the suffering. You bastard. Oh no. Haha. Oh yes. The backstab. Ouch. That was almost rip. Ooh. Isn't there another one? Oh, there's that one there. Okay.
The wait has been long, and I am Emma, High Priestess of Lothric Castle. Allow me to speak frank. You will not find the Lords of Sid. They have left to their journey homes, converging ahead to the bottom of the high wall. Forge on through the great gate.
Ah, thank you. Bye. I think you need to kill her before you go for like... Wow. It's... before you fight the dancer. Oh, wow, that was a pop-in. Come on, come on, come on. Zero death. Yes. Now we're fly away. Oh, you. Yep. Hi. Oh, who is here? Oh, the Tech Playa. Tech Playa is here. Thank you for the rides. Now we continue this. Oh, look at that one there. You see? You see that? You need to go there. You see he's shooting down that person. I mean that giant. Yeah. Bonfire is so lit, man. Vampire checkpoint in disguise. Thank you. Nope, we do not go down here. Nothing's here, no. Yeah, I know. No, Shirin, stop. There we go. There is one person here. Hello. There we go. Luring skull. Pilgrim. Isn't there?
Please, grant me death. Undo my shackles.
Nope. Think he can bring you some items later on. I don't know that I wasn't killing him before. Okie dokie, so we continue on. Something inside here? Nah. Okay. New enemy. another bonfire here. Okay. Hey, fire jump, nice. Ah, crap. Yoo-hoo. Ah, miss me. Jump. It is the Rotary Castle, I think. Oh boy, this place. This place is no fun. Just a second. Set it up? No. Go. Brighter for me. Noise. Hello. Ah, I knew that there was something like that. Yeah. Okay, this is gone. Uh-oh. I even missed. I even missed. Damn, how bad I am. Yeah, these cages are dangerous. God damn it. Can I? Hey, there we go. Oh, hello. Bear powder. Okay. One of those is definitely alive. Oh. Now let me remember. You go here, you go there, and you continue on, and there's somewhere is the red there. Oh, it's not the red. It's red there. Actually, it's on this side. We are the fat lady. I think you can kill them all without disturbing the lady, and then you can just kill her. I think. Oh, triggered. Ah. I didn't want them both to get triggered, just one. Sorry. Is it just one? Yeah, it is. Come here. Come. Oh no, 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 no. Chill. It sounds like a Murloc. Oh, who cared? Oh, ouch. Ouch. Uh-oh. Crap. Damn it. Uh-oh. Yep. Ah. You here? My lady, where are you? Just wanted to talk, to get some tea and biscuits, I don't know. Come on, my lady. Come, my lady. Oh, crap. She does that, okay. She's a hugger, well, thank you for the hug. Thank you, no, I don't want to hold your hug anymore, bye-bye. The Glasgows. Actually, I need to order some black tea because I found a quite aromatic black tea somewhere, and it's actually good because I tried it. Jesus Christ! No, 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 no! Oh, no, 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 no Hogarino, no Hogarino. Ah, backstabberino, ho ho. No, shh! Ah! Jesus, she's like a boss. Thank you, but your tea was way too hot for me. Oh crap, hello. Hey you farmer, stop. Estus, yes! How the... Yeah. Oh no, 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 no. No, 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 no. Never ever. That killed me actually. That actually added a black mark. Ooh, this place is dangerous. That one too. Hello there. Surprise, MF. That is not the way yet. I mean, that's connected down somewhere around there on the graveyard with the rat. Oh crap. Oh crap. No, 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 no. Ah, nope. I mean, it's time to go back. I do have one Estus shard, so worth it. Isn't there a spin thing around? You mean by me? I mean by the character you're playing, or you mean something else? Like plunging. It depends of the weapon that you have, because those are special attacks, I think. Hello, our favorite character.
As good as wasn't he? Pretty be careful.
Be careful.
I don't want to see my
Let's see
work.
where works squandered.
Welcome, speak. Very well, then Tapek Nara.
Want to touch your darkness. Only one level I can okay.
Farewell, Ashen One.
Bye bye. Okay. Where is he? He should be some. Ah, there you go. Haha, found you. Hi, you bastard. Oh, backstabbing. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for missing the backstabbing. Not the backstabbing. The plunge. This is more appropriate. Oh, another one. There is another. Oh, I thought that this place was cleared. God dang it. There is no other way. Ooh, hello. Ah! Hey! That was not a deal, man. No touch me. Don't touch me. Don't touch me. Touch me. Great. Yeah, this is the place for those cages. This is it? Oh, hello. Titanite shard. Nice. Nice. Hello. Oh, that's lovely. Looks like a butcher shop. Nope. Oh, yeah. Ah, there we go. Hello. Oh, you bastard. What the hell? There we go. Oh, hey. What the hell are you doing with that? I hate those. Beware to the left, try fire. Question, what fire? It's not open from this side, so probably must be upstairs? Hello there. Praise the sun, okay. Canada, yeah. I don't know what is that, but yeah. Praise the sun. Oh, don't have it. Maybe I can switch. No, I think I don't have it yet. Oh, isn't this guy like super strong? Do we have fire bombs? That's only angered him. Hi. Yeah, I'm going to take you upstairs. Come here. Come to the sun. There we go. Hi. So now I can die here. Oh. Yum. Sweet. Thought it's going to be harder. Oh, you can't go here. Ah, okay. So this is actually the right way. Good, Anakin, good. There we go. Ah, yes, this is the one. The alley. Oh. Oh, okay. Treasure head? Okay. That's good. Ah, okay. Not too bad. Come on. This is rather suspicious. What? Hi. Come on. There we go. Oh, hey. Ah, yeah, I kind of knew that that's going to happen. No. Hello. Hi there. I'm your new neighbor. But you're not so nice. A whip. Oh, crap. Move on the other side, thank you. Go there, thank you. That's what she said, indeed. Run! Yeah, screw. Uh-oh. No! No! Oh, where? Shut up! Ugh, damn it, now we have to deal with that. Can you stop shooting that? Mistake! Oh, you bitch! Sorry for words. Die! Whew. Yeah, cry. Jesus. You nasty. Yeah, oof. Big oof. Ah, Benfair, yeah, and there's the rat location. The rat farm. I know it was risky, I know. I know, we know. But we're not there yet. Ooh, hello. Hello. Wait, where's the bonfire? Huh, down there. I go up there. And there we go. That is what I was looking for. Let's try. Nice. Isn't it that you will get invaded at this point here, if I remember correctly? Secret? Nope. Nope. You know what? I'm going to like from this side because I don't want to get loose of that blue lizard. Or crystal lizard or whatever it's called. Yeah. Failed. No, failed. Failed so bad. Oh, too risky, man. It wasn't actually worth it. I would just go here and that would be it. So what's the situation here? We have that huge guy there. And we have the other dude that's shooting down there. Which where it is? Not there. I forgot. But yeah, bonfire. Yay! Anxiety, take that out. No, 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 no! So now, oh, we need a freaking, and it's not that one. Oh, and it's. You need to go through that. Oh, Jesus Christ, that's going to be the suffering. Oh, congrats. Don't get triggered by me. Oh, crap. He's one big boy. You know what? Whee! YOLO! Let's fight here. Oops. Ouch. You know, I can do you. Jesus. Bit risky, but I done it. Where's that dude? He's shooting for, like... Ah, there he is. Are you winning, son? Oh yeah, I'm winning. Yep, incoming. There we go. So we need to go there, so we can get to the optional boss that is inside, which is a tree. So we need to go actually up there to turn that thingy. I mean, whatever, you know. You smell, boss? Yeah, I smell it too. So we need to go there, there, and then go around there. It's just like a lot. So actually I'm going to travel. First off, travel. I'm going to with her if I can level up.
Welcome home, speak. Very well, then take nourishment.
Damn it.
Farewell, Ashen Maiden.
Farewell, Asher One. Oh, that's... That's nothing. Okay,
Welcome
just...
home, speak. Very well, then take
Should I go vitality? Actually, dexterity. I need a lot of vigor, so.
farewell, Ashen One.
Bye bye. Can't advise you here. Yeah, I need to check. I need to legit check. Let's go here. I need to check. It's on Chutak, you mean on the feeling? I mean, you can respec later on, so the feeling like it is this in the Sarma, you know. Yours. Tot. Yeah, it's a shortcut. Oh, and it's a painful one. They're like, hey, boyos. Come in. Oh, not bo. Oh, crap. That is not good. Okay, you're the brave one. There's one there. Another one is there. Here is the one. Oh, hello. Oh, I didn't saw you at all. Oh, hello. Ooh, those are the crazy ones. Cray. Ow! You... Well, one fall down. I don't know what I picked up. Oh, come on, really? Can I go back? Do I have an option to go back? far ahead.
Another Nana disappeared. So grunt and carries a key ever had. And Nana's never coming back. So come into the cage and become another Nana. So grunt and that's
Okay. Great. You're doing a great job. Oof. Oh yeah, remember that place down there. Yeah, boss is up there. Should I go? I can't just go. If I die, I die. I lost those souls, well, whatever, it's Dark Souls. If I die, I die. Oh, Jesus Christ, I'm going to die. Should I stay or should I go? Ba-na-na-na-na-na-na. Oh, hello, thank you. Oh, yeah, okay, I don't need it. Oof, phew. Bye. Pick you up later. He does take me somewhere. Oh, right. Oh, there is an option to go here. Ah, okay. Cool. Pointless. Well, no, it's not. It gives you an option to go back. Oh, it's pointless. Do you even know Dark Souls? No, you don't, so shut up. Stop at me. You got it? Firebomb. YOLO. 0 deaths today. Okay, I know this. You go there, there is that one, you go and you have something down there, and you have that there, and yeah. Oh. Oh, crap. Oh, Sam. Damn. Oh, damn. Congrats. Oops. Oh, you're already throwing at me, huh? Oh, right it then. Oh, right. Yeah. No! Leave that crap there. Should I go down here? Oh, come on, stop! Okay. But there is another, as always, Satan chart. Secret? Nope, nothing. Whee! Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Bonfire, please, thank you. Bonfire, yes! Ooh. Whoo! Damn, that was a... Oof. That was slug, man. Yeah, who need Testus? I can survive 0 deaths. Heh. Okay, let's kill those fire throwing bastards. Screw you! And you too. There we go.
Aha, unkindled, are we?
Uh-huh.
Welcome to my abode. I am Cornix, an old pyromancer. A crow in his cage, as you see now. But here we are, an encounter for the ages. I hear the unkindled make for fine vessels. Care to learn some pyromancies from this old man?
Well, why not?
Most wise. A chance encounter should not be squandered. To reiterate, I am Cornix of the Great Swamp. The pleasure is mine.
Okay, bye. I thought it was going to be like a long talk. Ooh, hand axe. Is it better? Probably it's not. Yeah, no. It's weight less, but it's not better. This one is better, but I cannot handle it. Because it's... Okay. No, bye. Ah, crap. No, baby. Not tonight, not today. Oh, did he die? Oh, he fell down. Three souls. Rawr. Oh, not the Fate Light again. Now where is that? Is it down there? Really? And yeah, I know. That is what I'm looking for. I think it's in this way somewhere. I think it's here. Like there. And no, Shireen, stop. Yeah, there we go. Not the rat again. Let's see if this is like the real spot, like do you want to become famous? Thank you, Shikaka. Alright. Okay. Hello there. Oh. No Triggerino? Oh, there's a big rat there. Now we see one. Oh, hello. Hello. Oh, I wasn't ready. No, 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 no. Oh, mama. Yeah, that's what we were doing. We were plunging on it. And farming begins. How it is? Oh, it's actually quite a lot still. Okay. And we opened. Yay! Ah, so this is still a good farming spot for a couple levels. Or 150, okay. Nice. I'm not going to farm much. I don't want to be on stream and just farm this to the hell. Ouch. Not too bad. Right. Thanks. Can you wake up? Thank you. What the hell was that? I have an option, I forgot. So come up there, but you can't go there, okay. Now I'm a pickle. Should I farm for like a couple of souls and then like, you know, go to the go upstairs maybe? But these bosses are hard hitting. So you go down here. Wings are hard. You mean for this guy? Nah. Definitely I will need to go upstairs to that tower. That is a firm. What the hell was that? Some weird Leggerino. Come on. I think I need at least 5 to 6k to get at least 2 levels. So I think I'm going to farm here a bit. Just for those couple of levels. Can we? No. There we go. Whee! Whoops! Wrong attack. Dirt! Oh, I think this is the way you can go up here, like, from downstairs. I think that is the way. From the ravine or whatever that called. Okay, now I have probably okay, just kill those couple of rats. Oh, come on. Okay, I think that's enough. I think that tree is an optional boss, if I remember correctly. Travel, finding shrine, there we go.
Welcome, host. Very well, then take Nara. Let these souls with
Oof. Oh, I need more. Oh. Really?
Farewell, Ashen One.
Yeah, shut up. I think I need to spend it like at least 2 of them.
Welcome, speak. Very well, then Tuphaken.
Alright. Then, yes, perfect. Yeah, why not?
Farewell, Ashen One.
Okay. Farewell, Ashen One. Okay, travel. This one, yes. Oh, wrong side. Whoops. So there is no way to like go back. Fine. Oh, screw you. The boss there. Yeah, we need to go through that tombstone and a lot of arrows, whatever. These people are like, yes, mistress, we're following you behind. Yes, mistress. It's long way down. Come on, dodge. Okay, fine by me. Oh, there are 3 of them here. Oh my god. And I don't have any fighting experience with them. Oh no. Mommy! Oh yeah. Oh, can I plunge on it? Hi! Crap! Oh, hey! Way pushing way too much my luck. No. Oof. Good thing that I have resistance. Oh, they can throw that away. Hmm. Blood loss. Crap. I mean, yeah, okay. Hope I will not be able to trigger that one. It's a trigger? No, it's not. Oh, hello. Learning skull, nice. Oh boy. Oh, I think he's not.
Another one of those unkindled, are you? All you faceless undead, behaving as if you deserve respect. No matter. Heed my words. If you've any sense, you'll go find a coffin to huddle up inside. You here, in this land of hollows. You're like a frail maiden on the front lines. If, like the others, you're fool enough to play the champion, then go on ahead. Traipse right past the abandoned church. You'll face death. Enough death.
Where? Shut up. Oh, come on, really? That is the lowest point to fall down. Second of all, probably we need an arrow and like to shoot that down. Third, do we want to go down here? And maybe able to go up? Do have bone, homeware bone, whatever that is. Let me check, and yeah, no. Oh, Jesus Christ. No! Don't fall down, Jesus Christ. Oh, it's this one, What? I don't have any arrows? I have them. No, God damn it, that was stupid death. It's... Oh, yeah. No more 0 deaths. God damn it. That is sad. Frick me. Zero deaths. Wait. Dude, change it. It's not. Oh, come on. Why are you not working? Do you work? +1, thank you. Where is the fat lady? Are you really just hanging there? Really? What attribute do you need for bow? I need the dexterity. Oh, Jesus Christ. Are you really going to hang there? Oh my god, that is the worst. You! Hi! Okay. Want to play like that? Play like that! There you go. You? Come. Uh-oh. Ah, mommy. The plunge was successful and a backstab. No. Can you come here? Damn it. Ah, that's why I'm getting so much damage. Well, okay, we can deal with that. Jesus Christ, can you like... Yeah, go back. There we go. You, throw that. Miss me. Huh, juked. You know that attack? That is like a gamer attack. Because when a gamer is mad. Or like a Dark Souls. Because you can keep like just destroying your controller. Ooh, thank you. So that is way too high. Okay. How do I get down? We can't go through those doors there. In the sewers. We have that there, but that is just nothing. Let's try to move on.
You like poking around? The good she's... The woman's a good she's beyond.
Or you go with the elevator down, like here. Open the gate! Oh boy. Well, bye, I guess. Try dash. Oh, hello. Hey! Onion Man! What's up? Well met, sir.
Pardon me, I was absorbed in thought. I am Siegwart of Katarina. To be honest, have you ever walked near a white... Well, if I'm... Whoever it is, I'm sure... But I have to find a way up. This lift only go... Well... This... I...
I think you need to do like this. Well, hello there. Oh, do you see this? Oh, and this one goes up. Oh, bye-bye. And I know that there is something stuff here. You can go there. Wow. And I heard. Oh no, thank you. Okay. Well, hello there.
Who are you?
I'm the...
I help anytime. I help any... I help.
I think that now magically he won't be shooting anymore. What is that branch? Okay, so it's not that thing.
I help.
Yes, that dragon, that is also optional. Now you stop shoot down, please, thank you. I'm not sure if I'm... Wait, Thank you, please come again. Where is he? Now, is this what I think this is that the frozen thing in there? You go continue through here, there. I think this is the way to the swamp. Looks like it. Yeah, this. Yeah, I see. Remembering to the dark. Oh, that's the dark sage, black sage, whatever. Oh no. Oh no. Okay, at least I want to get to that tree. To the tree boss and this boss. No, maybe not today. So. What? Oh, come on, really? The rats. Because of the rats, I need to waste like 2 Estus flask. Actually, that is quite a slow-moving creature. I think I need how much? 3,500 souls for the next level. Oh, I thought that I got rid of this guy. Okay, first I'm going to like do this. Small farm here. Done. Big brain. Sure. I think one more. Ouch. I think it would be a smart idea to go with the dexterity, what it needed for the bow. Travel, fucking shrine.
Welcome. Very well then taken.
Dexterity, yes.
Farewell, Ashen One.
Okay, go to this bridge. Now let's go and die. Think he will help for these two guys, maybe? Okay, are you going to shoot me? Okay, that's good enough. You hear? And thank you. Ooh. Noise.
Kill them all.
Ooh, almost killed me. Come on. Noise. Okay, good enough. Thank you. Oh, Jesus Christ. Yep, that was too close. There's some stuff here. Ashes? Hi. You are special, right? You like took like a lot of hits to die. Hey, hey. Put your fork down. Oh, hey. Oh, Jesus Christ. Stop it, dude. Thank you for the help, but you know... Oh, what the hell was that? There we go. Okay, this is the boss here. Oh, hello. Yes, that is the boss. And he's actually optional. Secret? No secret. Oh, this is a shortcut? Wow, yeah. Passport and clean. What the hell are you talking about? Oh, I don't care about the souls, but yeah. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. I get moist. I know that you shoot and then you go down. I'm already moist in my hands. This is like the most sweaty game that I'm ever played. Okay, whew, boss time. Hi. Hey. Oh, you guys. I need to deal with you, really? Great, I'm so smart. Oh boy, 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 oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. What? I need to deal with this asshole first. Okay, those boss, yes, that is quite obvious. Jesus Christ, are you okay? Ouch. Really? Oh, come on. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. Why do I have to deal with these guys? Jesus Christ. Am I missing something? Oh yeah. Oh, rip. I promise I don't have a shortcut. It's not a good one. You know what? I don't care about those souls. Yeah, there are 3,000 souls there, but 0 deaths. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. USDs. What? Oh, okay. Source restored. Hey. Oh. The problem I have is are these assholes spawning all the time. They praise the tree to grow stronger. Whoa, way! Oh boy, oh Bakaruna. Oh, come on, really? Oh no! I'm mostly losing HP because of these guys. Oh, thanks. Oh, thanks. Again. Oh, Jesus Christ. Really? Kill them more, please, thank you. Come on, tree. Oh my god. Oh my god. No! God damn it. One more try. Come on. Thanks, thanks. Fucking A. Come on. These guys are freaking annoying. Damn it. And here we go. Whee! Oh, nasty. Ow, ow, ow. crap. Oh my god. Oh my god. What are you doing? Great. No, oh no. No, no. Oh, so close. Anyway, this is it for me. I tried to give it a try. Ooh, this, do you remember this boss is hard? Well, it is hard, but it's not hard, but it is hard, it's not hard, but... yeah. It's not about the missing. It's problem that those bosses are getting up and down, and it's impossible to hit them. It's better you're off targeting, and they do not talk on those boss. They're actually just talking on that, you know, boss. Just regular, just, you know, as a whole, as a general thing. So yeah. Hit them boss and you win. Yeah. We'll do that next time. Whew. Reinforces Wednesday. Yeah. If I do that one. But then you have that mini boss, the dragon there, and then there's down there is a strong one, and then it's quite a while to get to the Dark Sage. But yeah, calculating what I can do. So yeah, thank you everyone for being here. We appreciate it. Thanks to Shikaka and the Playa. You're the best. You're really the ones that I want you here for my suffering. Also, thanks to others who joined. I hope that, yeah, that you enjoyed my suffering. It wasn't too much today, mostly farming, so, and exploring around. So yeah, the next stream is going to be on Wednesday, more of Dark Souls, obviously. Otherwise, I wish you a nice day and have fun. Bye bye!